All right. Hello and welcome to episode 77 of the Gaming Perspective podcast. I am your host, Nicholas Downey. It's going to be an interesting night tonight. We got some great gaming news. We got Microsoft Sega partnership. We got more Blizzard updates. We got a ton of stuff to talk about tonight. So we'll get into that. But first, as always, I'll introduce the panel. We are short Eric tonight. He is spending some much needed time with his wife and daughter. So wishing him the best with that. And as always, my good friend, a strategic partner, if you will, of mine, Mr. Samuel Strategic Alliance Tolbert. How's it going today, sir?
It's good. It's good. Very strategic. Very alliance. Whatever. This
is a super podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We are piling our resources in to develop a next generation super podcast that will not only be a podcast but will be a platform for other podcasts. Oh my god. Good. It really annoyed we missed last week because there was some good stuff then, but we'll go over the cream of the crop from that. So
absolutely,
it'll be fine.
So we got to kick it off. It's been 2 weeks. Video games. Do we play them?
Do you? I don't know.
No.
Let's see that gamer score.
No.
I'm sorry. I had to.
It's a minute 26 into the podcast. They can't be this messy already, and not from you. I expect better from you.
Look, Eric isn't here. Eric and I are both individually chill. It's like we're both like here on the chill scale, and you're like up here. But the problem is because Eric isn't here, my chill is multiplied by his chill. So now I'm up here as well. It's like it's just science. Just how it works.
Podcast science. So Sam, what have you been playing this week?
I hate to do this, so the main one I've been playing I can't actually talk about, and I'll talk about it next week. I'm sorry. I don't like doing that, but it happened. It happened this week. I was hoping it wouldn't. I can say, however, that I did something really rare for me as of late, and I got to check out a really cool indie game. And I wrote about it for Halloween as part of a post my editor and I did on like the best Halloween games, like indie games you probably missed this year that you should play. And it is one that came to my attention because the YouTuber Mandalore did a video on it. It's called No One Lives Under the Lighthouse, and it is excellent. It is like $8, if that. I don't know what the region, like the currency converts into in Canadian or UK, but like it's $8 US, 10 if you want the soundtrack. Made by 3 people in the Ukraine. So like very, very tiny indie team. The director's cut came out this year, which very heavily reworked the second half of the game and added some bug fixes. And it's pretty simple. It is you're a lighthouse keeper. You're on a tiny island keeping the lighthouse. You got to clean up the gunk. You have to repair your house if it gets damaged. You have to clean up dead doves. You have to, trim the wick. You have to add the oil. You have to do it every night. Pretty simple stuff. There's definitely no one living under the lighthouse. Nothing at all. I'm not going to say more than that because it is, I can say more, but I'm not going to say more about the game itself than that because it is a very short game. It's like 2 hours, maybe 3 hours if you take your time. It is designed to be replayed. There's like 3 endings. So I don't want to say too much about the plot because it's very quick. This is one of those games kind of like Adios or Paratopic, that kind where you can finish it in a single setting. Like it's just go for it, done. You don't really need, there is a save, but you don't need to use the save type thing. But it's part of the PS1 horror renaissance, as I like to call it, because it's, again, one of those games where it is intentionally styled to look like an old-timey PS1 game, with the blocky textures and the real grainy fog and rain.
Yeah. Like
straight out of the original Silent Hill. So seriously, that's No One Lives Under the Lighthouse. Go check it out, seriously. And the other thing I've been playing is one that you're familiar with as well. And you've put more time into than I have, but that's Back 4 Blood. And I got to say, you know what? Back 4 Blood is fun. It's a lot of fun. It is, out of all the games that have tried to fill the hole that Left 4 Dead left behind, because, Valve can't count to 3, yada, yada, insert your own joke there. This one probably comes the closest. This is the closest thing we're ever going to get to a Left 4 Dead 3. And it's really good. It's really fun. The missions being really quick. I wasn't sure how I'd feel about that, but it's interesting. They're 7 to 10 minutes long, probably. each individual mission, maybe 15 for the longer ones. So you go in, you just do a few, you get out. It's fun. The card-based system is kind of interesting. It shakes things up a little. I like how frenetic the gameplay is. The gunplay feels really good. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. But that's what I've been up to that I can talk about.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been dabbling in Back for Blood still. Yeah, like you said, it's really interesting too, because I feel like for a lot of people that don't like Back for Blood, they're spending too much time trying to compare it to Left 4 Dead instead of just enjoying it as a base core game of what it is. I enjoy Back 4 Blood a lot for a lot of different reasons, and not necessarily for the same reasons I enjoy Left 4 Dead. What I loved about Left 4 Dead was the fact that you could just be goofy with your friends. Like, you didn't have to try. You could slap that game on normal, and even if your three friends were being idiots, you could kind of pull each other up by your bootstraps and get her done. That is not a thing in Back 4 Blood. That absolutely not. You need to be cohesive. You need to work together. And if you're playing it with friends, it's awesome. There's not quite an experience like it, and I love co-op games. As you said, the gunplay is really good. They improved it a lot from the beta. It feels like I felt the guns kind of felt like potato guns when I played the beta originally, but I don't know what they did, but they feel punchier. So it's interesting. Overall though, yeah, I'm enjoying my time with it. I don't know what else I can really say about that. It's fun. It's not like game of the year material. It's not, some genre defining blockbuster, but it's a lot of fun with friends. And if you have Game Pass and a few friends and you want to kill some time, it's a pretty fun way to do that. Now, speaking of things that are absolutely killing my time and constantly on my mind, I've been playing Age of Empires 4 this week. And oh my God, this you're muted.
Yeah, I know. I did that because I was coughing. I'm living vicariously through you, is what I was going to say, because I can't right now. So feed it to me. Feed me.
So I really think we're into like the golden age of RTS games again, because it feels like there's smaller ones like Iron Harvest. They're doing some really unique things, and now Age of Empires is back, and it's back in a really, really big way. It feels like a throwback, but it's modernized. But it's more than that, because saying it's just simply Age of Empires 2 but modernized would be doing it a disservice. It's highly detailed. It's a lot of fun. It's the core gameplay's there. It's the same core gameplay that's driven Age of Empires for eons. But the campaigns are enticing. The narrative is interesting. You learn a lot. And the battles are challenging. Like, this isn't just some cakewalk of, oh, you're going to go build a farm, and now you build a soldier, and now you do. No, it can be challenging, and they throw a lot of different stuff at you. The campaigns are great. Skirmishes are a lot of fun. There's some great map variety. I love there seems to be a more defined difference between the different factions that you can play, and they really cater to your player style more than they ever did. It feels like it's like, oh, you like a blitz play style, then you'll want to do this. That's what I love. It feels so personal now. Like, it's hard to explain. Like, so many RTS games when I was growing up, it just felt like you had to play a specific way. And I'm not sure if it's because, I'm like 20 years older now and I've got a bigger brain for this stuff now. By finding more and more RTS games that you find the faction that suits your playstyle and then just thrive on that. And I'm absolutely loving Age of Empires 4 for that. And I cannot stress enough, don't just hop into the online multiplayer. The campaigns are really, really, really good. I'll save some of my more complex thoughts for my review that I'm doing at the end of the week. But overall, great game. Runs phenomenally. As someone who often curses and cusses about PC gaming, because my God, sometimes it's stupidly complicated. Literally, all I did was install game, update drivers, play game. Game never crashes, never lags, never frame drops, nothing. Perfect. Love it. And like, if you have a PC, buy it. Or do your $1 PC Game Pass if you haven't already. Because Age of Empires 4 is fully worth the price of admission. And like, I'd buy this thing over and over and over again if I could. Honestly, it's
wow,
so good.
Wow. Okay, so I know you said you're going to save most of your thoughts for your review, but let me ask this, because I know there's been some talk about how there's only 8 factions, right? There are less factions than in a lot of games. To be fair, I think some people are ignoring the fact that those games have gotten literal decades of add-ons and support. And it's like Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition literally got new content just 6 or 7 months ago. So a little bit of a miscomparison, but I've heard that the factions here feel more unique than in the other games. Like, it's not just a reskin of each type of faction. There are legitimate differences to how they play. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, because the thing is like, this is something that I really loved that Iron Harvest did, and it's something that Age of Empires 4 did a really brilliant way, is that each faction feels like its own, like, it sounds stupid to say, but it feels like its own civilization. Like, there's certain perks for like, oh, if you like building a more economy-based build, or you like to focus more on the economy side of things, this faction will kind of help you in that way. If you like to rush, this faction plays more to your rushing style, but it may have downsides later in the game. That kind of thing fully comes into play with this. There are factions that if you try to say, oh, I'm going to play, for argument's sake, I'm going to play the French, and I want to build a rush build off the French. The French are not built for rush builds. If you want to do rushing right off the bat, the Mongols is better suited to your play style. But if you're more defensive and like to start slow and then build into a massive powerhouse, the French is a good build for that. It all comes down to definitively what your play style is to what faction you will play. And the interesting part of that is I've only played like 2 or 3 factions so far, just playing skirmishes and everything else, just, dicking around, for a lack of a better word. And what I'm finding is that you find little subtle nuances. You're like, oh, well, with this faction, cavalry is a little bit cheaper, so I can get into my cavalry a lot faster early game, which puts me at a speed advantage. And it's little things that make the difference. And I think that's what's so great about the factions, is it's more meaningful than this is the Chinese and they're red, and this is the Russians and they're blue. And it's more meaningful and in-depth things that as you play more, you learn it. There's a lot here. Like, the entry point is low, but the skill ceiling on this game is so ridiculous.
That's what I like to hear. That's what I really like to hear then. That's good.
And considering, like, I know everyone says only 8 factions, but what has impressed me so far is there's not that one faction. Like, you know how in some RTS games where it's like, oh, we're constantly playing the Mongols versus the Mongols because this is the meta. No, there is no standout faction where you can cheese your way to victory.
Mm-hmm. That was something I liked about Age of Mythology as well, is that, like, there were less factions, but they all played very, very differently from each other. So that's really good to hear. That's encouraging. Like, to me personally, and also, spoiler alert, they're going to add more in DLC. They are. This game is going to get expansions, y'all. This game is going to get DLC packs. It's also been really successful, right? I know Benji. Shout out to Benji Sales. He's a good friend of mine. He's been on the show before. Like, he was saying, it has the highest Steam concurrent player count of any Age of Empires game ever, and it's the second highest for any Xbox Game Studios game on Steam ever. So yeah, like, this game is a success. It's going to be good. Most painful thing to me is not being able to play it right now.
I need to figure out how to clone my 3060 Ti.
For real, man. For real.
But yeah, no, that's basically all I've been playing this week. But yeah, full review at the end of the week for Age of Empires 4, and then I will be doing the Sam embargoed thing next week. So it's embargo game season, y'all.
Yeah, it's November. We're obnoxious this time of year. We're sorry. We legitimately are. It is what it is.
Yeah. But you know what isn't obnoxious? We're going to jump right into the news today. Wow. Yeah, obviously. I'm not going to wait till tomorrow. This news is kind of interesting to me. So I want to piggyback. I want to preface this is I really hate how my entire Twitter news feed is attempting to make me care about the Guardians of the Galaxy game. I hate every single one of you. I have no investment in Marvel, and I've been sitting there with the buy button just hovering. I'm like, I don't have the time. I can wait till Black Friday. But everyone will not stop talking about how good this game is. And it's made by Eidos Montreal. They made Deus Ex. I kind of got to trust it at some point. So I know I'm going to cave on that.
All I'm going to say, I got to interject here, man. All I'm saying is literally every single person on my timeline who has tried this game has said, wait a minute, this is way better than it has any right to be. In order, the people I've seen say this, Matt Piscatella, Richard Hogue, Justin, our friend, he's been on here before, Doc. That is a wide range of people who don't normally agree with each other. So I'm just putting that out. I haven't played it either, but I'm just putting that out there into the ether, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to cave. I'm kind of hoping it'll be a Black Friday deal and I can save some money. But speaking of someone who can instantly get me on board for a Marvel game, it was announced earlier this week that Marvel is partnering with Amy Hennig's AAA game studio Skydance New Media for an all-new interactive title. Man, this week's full of buzzwords. I'm telling y'all now, PR buzzwords are going to be 90% of this episode. But as everyone knows, Hennig is a well-respected video games writer and director, is known for her work with Naughty Dog, specifically with the Uncharted series. She even hinted back in 2019 that she was working with Marvel. So there's no title. It's just Amy Hennig's working on a Marvel game. I'm excited. I really want to know what, like,
yeah.
If you're more of a Marvel guy than I am, what would be a Marvel IP you would like to see Amy Hennig take a stab at?
It's tough. It's really tough. So I'm going to preface this with there's several right answers. You realize how big Marvel is, right? Just to be clear.
Absolutely.
But here's what I'm going to say in terms of stuff that hasn't been done yet. A Fantastic Four game. I think, like, powers that, especially when you hear about, the troubled development of Uncharted 4 and before she left, a lot of that ended up being reworked later when Neil Druckmann and Bruce Straley took over the project. But she originally wanted, like, the first half to 2/3 of the game to not have any combat and to have different kinds of gameplay mechanics. So when I think of the Fantastic Four, I think of the varied types of gameplay you can do, like using Mr. Fantastic's, elastic stretching abilities to restrain enemies and momentum and movement. But then also you have Sue Storm, who can create force fields and turn invisible. So she's entirely stealth-based and entirely defensive-based. You can get... I just think that is an interesting power set and an interesting family that isn't dysfunctional as compared to a lot of Marvel characters, frankly, and that would be fun for Hennig to write around. But no matter what she ends up doing, I'm going to be interested. To be clear, this is a new studio, Skydance Media, that she is helping co-lead, and then I believe the other person helping lead it is a veteran at EA, former senior producer at EA. I don't remember the man's name, unfortunately. And this is a AAA action adventure blockbuster, is what they said they're working on. So probably going to be a bit before we learn more. I would say we're not going to learn what this game is in the next 18 months, probably. But
no,
I'm glad Amy Hennig. Like, I know she's been doing some things. Like, she's part of the writing team on Forspoken, along with Gary Whitta. But I'm glad she's back in the creator's seat. Because she's one of those creators alongside like Jade Raymond, where you kind of been jerked around for the last several years and not actually able to plant your feet and do something. So I'm excited. I'm excited to learn more. I know it's going to be a bit before we do learn more.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this. As a not really that big of a Marvel aficionado, what would you like to learn that she's working on?
See, the thing with Henning is knowing her background, and like with Uncharted and everything else she's done, she can make interesting stories out of nothing. But I think there's a lot of Marvel characters that could use a AAA blockbuster style game. Like, of course, the inner part of me is like, I want to see Amy Hennig do a Deadpool game, because why not? But Deadpool's way too easy to write, way too stupid. Anybody could kind of do that. I kind of would love to see a Doctor Strange game from her. If there was anyone that can make it, if there's anyone that can make his power set interesting and drive a narrative story around it, I'd be interested.
That's interesting, because normally when people say Doctor Strange, they say it in connection to Remedy. So that's why I say that's really interesting to hear you say you'd like it to be Amy Hennig.
Yeah,
I'm not judging another, by the way. I'm just saying that's an interesting observation.
Well, I was going to say Control kind of borderlines on what happened if Doctor Strange was a woman, basically.
Yeah. You made Doctor Strange a woman and gave them a gun.
Yeah. Doctor Strange has a piece. What? But yeah, no, for me, it'd be something like that. Like, I'd love to see. I don't want to see her do something overtly mainstream, but still something people like. Obviously, they're not going to do some storyline that no one's heard of or anything like that. But
although I almost wish they would, now that you say that.
Yeah, like I would. Like, we're getting a Wolverine game from Insomniac, which is exciting.
It's not going to be Spider-Man, Avengers, or Guardians of the Galaxy. We can rule those out.
Yeah. Though I think we could just pretend like Marvel's Avengers doesn't exist, and I think that would be okay.
To be fair, you know what? I should say, maybe don't rule Avengers out. maybe don't rule Avengers. Rule Guardians of the Galaxy and Spider-Man out, but maybe don't rule Avengers out.
Yeah. But yeah, I think I agree with you. I think it'll be a while before we hear anything concrete on this. I just want Amy Hennig to do well, because like between, the Uncharted 4 stuff, and then she was part of that EA Star Wars game that was canned.
She was the lead, dude. Yep.
Yeah. Was that Star Wars the 1313?
No. 1313 was the bounty hunter game that was canceled when Disney acquired Star Wars and said, "Whoa, we got to reel all this in," and LucasArts game development was shuttered. That was the canceling of 1313. Her game was at EA, and it was canceled, and it was known as Project Ragtag. And it was going to be an Uncharted. It was Uncharted, but Star Wars, basically. It was, you played as a smuggler, you had a team of smugglers, and you could like command your crew to do special abilities. By the way, weirdly sounds very familiar to how Guardians of the Galaxy plays. I'm just going to put that out there.
It sounds like Uncharted meets Republic Commando, and I'm kind of like hating the fact that it doesn't exist.
Yeah, one of many Star Wars games that did not come to fruition under EA. I don't want to drag that whole thing back up, but yeah, 1313 was another one. 1313 is infamous because that game was actually shown at E3. That's why that one is.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
So yeah.
Pour one out for 1313.
F's in chat.
Yeah. Speaking of things that don't need F's in the chat, we got to talk about Blizzard. So they had their third quarter earnings call, I believe. Despite everything, they still managed to increase their profits by 6%. So that's a thing. But there are some interesting tidbits hidden throughout this earnings report. We'll start with the games, because I think this will be a really quick, easy conversation. So both Diablo 4 and Overwatch 2 were, I put in quotations, delayed. Stating, while we are still planning to deliver a substantial amount of content for Blizzard next year, we are now planning for a later launch for Overwatch 2 and Diablo 4. So, from my understanding, and Sam, of course, you will correct me if I am wrong, these were both supposed to be 2022 games. So, judging by this verbiage, it's safe to assume that these are both now 2023 games.
Mostly. What makes it weird is that they were never stated to be 2022 games. It was just implied. They never said they were going to, they just very highly implied, which again is what makes this delay so awkward to word, because they haven't technically said they are delayed to 2023. They're just highly implying it. So it's a little weird. The phrasing, like the games that already got one delay but never a hard date or even a window, getting another delay that doesn't have a date or even a window is just, it's weird. It's a strange situation. What I will say about this is, if you had to ask me where do I think they're going to land, I think the most optimistic version here is Overwatch 2 in late 2022, Diablo 4 in early 2023. And I think realistically, it's more like Overwatch 2 in early 2023, Diablo 4 in late 2023.
Right. Because now I have a hard time keeping all the Blizzard stuff straight. And I know you've done a lot of reporting on the Blizzard stuff. So Diablo 4 being delayed doesn't really surprise me. They ousted one of the creative directors from that game, correct?
The game director who was overseeing it. It's a little weird because they don't have a solid creative director. It's just they had a couple of different senior directors overseeing different parts. But Louis Baraga, the game director, has been ousted, yes. And he was one of the 23 or 24 Blizzard employees that have been fired as a result of the last several months of allegations. There is a new game director on that. And Mike Ibarra, we'll get back to him in a moment, by the way, did say during the conference call that part of the reason behind the delay for Diablo 4 was a leadership change. So, yes. So
that makes a lot of sense. That's perfpally 100%
pretty understandable, honestly. Yeah.
It's same thing with when Dying Light 2 got delayed, when their lead writer got ousted and outed. Right. Makes sense. You can't say oust people and then still deliver the games on time. You can't have
right. Like if you, I don't want to derail too far into this, but I've seen some people having the wrong take about these games getting delayed. I will say that, if these games are getting delayed because they had to fire creeps and abusers, that's fine. Delay them. It's okay. Anyways.
Yeah. So, and Overwatch 2 being delayed. Overwatch 2 is this weird thing because it feels constantly like not even Blizzard knows what the scope of Overwatch 2 is anymore. Mm-hmm. And with the departure of Jeff Kaplan just before all of this hit the fan, Overwatch 2 has kind of been in a weird place, and to see it delayed to 2023 or possibly be delayed to 2023, it feels weird, right? This was going to be an Xbox One cross-generation game originally, right? This was originally...
It feels like it, yes.
Yeah.
It feels like it. Diablo 4 as well, but I think that was always less realistic, is the way I'll phrase that. Diablo 4 was announced for Xbox One and PS4, but I don't think that was ever as realistic as Overwatch.
I agree.
Overwatch 2 was more realistic to expect that. It's the whole thing surrounding Overwatch 2 is more weird. I will say we have seen big departures from that team earlier this year, right? We had the head of Overwatch and the Overwatch League depart Blizzard. So again, I don't think it's that. I'm trying to think of how to put this. I think it's perfectly understandable. I just think there is a less clear vision of what that game is. I know what Diablo 4 is. They Absolutely. Are very clear. They give quarterly updates every 3 months, being very transparent about what that game is. I've seen several updates for Overwatch 2, and I still get a little confused as to what exactly is going on.
Yeah, but I agree. And it feels the main reason it feels weird is by the time 2023 rolls around, it'll have been 7 years since the first Overwatch released. And that just it feels weird.
That feels wrong, honestly. That feels
Well, and to add insult to injury, they announced that their esports league is going to be playing beta versions of Overwatch 2.
And that's weird because the other thing with this, man, is that didn't they, or was it earlier this year or last year? Please correct me if I'm wrong on which one it was, when they said Overwatch is not getting any more updates.
It was the end of last year because they said they were
end of last year
on. Yeah.
Okay, so I understand. Let's assume the pandemic wiped out a year. Let's be very generous and say the pandemic wiped out a year. Even if we assume that, and if we now assume that Overwatch 2 is coming in early 2023, again, assumptions, your biggest game is going without updates for 2 years until the sequel arrives.
Yep.
That does not make... When, by the way, I will note, didn't they originally say at BlizzCon 2019 when this game was announced that the entire plan was that people on Overwatch could play with people on Overwatch? Like, you see what... Everything about Overwatch doesn't make sense. I'm not saying I have a problem with the game being delayed. It's fine if you need to change leadership, get the creeps out. Cool. They got to figure out what's going on with that game. Like, they really do.
Anyways, it is what it is. Hopefully we'll get more soon. They did a really great info drop on Overwatch 2 at BlizzCon last year or this year. Was it this year? No, last year.
No, it was this year. That was BlizzCon Line 2021. I know time is a blur. I know.
Yeah, but they did a great info drop, and then it's been basically nothing since then. So hopefully we'll get an update or something. Because I'd love Overwatch again. But there's also another big piece of news that was in this earnings call. Jen O'Neill, who is the former, I believe, head of Vicarious Visions,
correct?
Which many will remember. They did the Tony Hawk remakes. No. Vicarious Visions?
No, that was them. They did the Tony Hawk remakes. They've done a lot of remasters. Very, very talented remaster studio. They so remember, they got moved under Blizzard, but they used to be under the Activision half of Activision Blizzard. They were very recently moved under Blizzard, but before they got moved, they worked on a ton of games, man. They worked on they did support for innumerable games. I can't even mention those, but they did like the Skylanders games. They did the console ports, the console versions of the Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy.
Right.
They did a lot of cool stuff. So, and then obviously now that being under Blizzard, they took the lead over on Diablo 2 Resurrected.
Yeah.
And there is, side note to this, a report going around that they are going to be renamed as part of Blizzard. It is worth noting that while it comes from a pretty reputable source, it has not actually happened and been confirmed. So grain of salt and all that on as to whether or not that's happening. But anyways, continue.
Yeah, so Jen O'Neill, who is the former head of Vicarious Visions, she stepped up to a co-leadership role with Mike Ybarra on Blizzard Entertainment. Now, this is a distinction I had to read very, very carefully because originally when I was writing my report on this, I was like, co-lead of Activision Blizzard, but no, Blizzard Entertainment specifically blocked here is so it was Mike Ybarra and Jen O'Neill were in charge of Blizzard Entertainment.
Because J. Allen Brack stepped down as a result of the allegations earlier in August. I want to say it was August.
Yeah, it was August. It was like just before my birthday. I was like, this is terrible. But she stepped into that role and was a big proprietor of wanting to change the culture and had some really positive things to say about what she wanted to do going forward. She's now departing the company. She said she did her own separate post, which I implore people to go and read because it gives more context than the earnings call does. And basically, she wants to help support women in a wider range across the gaming industry as a whole versus a very focused role within Blizzard. So she is departing company, which leaves Mike Ybarra as the lead of Blizzard Entertainment in its current state. Wishing Mike the best with that. Whenever we talk about Blizzard, all I can think of is that scene from Pirates of the Caribbean where Beckett's walking down the ship slowly as the ship's blowing up all around him.
Blizzard leadership specifically over the last year. Very quickly, I'll say this. I wish Jen O'Neill the best in whatever she chooses to do here. I hope she succeeds. I wish Mike the best. I'm going to say this very. I was more comfortable knowing Jen O'Neill was part of the leadership at Blizzard, having a woman, after everything that's happened in a leadership role at that company. Blizzard and Activision have made some changes. They have improved some things. They got a long way to go. And to be clear, they would have had a long way to go even if she was in charge. Still.
Absolutely.
But more than ever, they got a long way to go. I will keep it at that.
Yeah, I think, and I think that's the thing that a lot of people are, I'm not going to say forgetting, but is that things like this don't change overnight. You can't change the entire culture of a studio or a company overnight. Yes, you can haul people out and everything else, but then you have to find the right people to fill in those roles so the same actions don't happen again. And I think that's going to take time. And I'm all for giving Blizzard credit for removing abusers and everything else. But I think Zehuge put it brilliantly on Twitter today is that this removing people and everything else is great. But the thing is that this isn't just a new thing. This is culturally something that has been in the studio for so long. And they're going to have to fight and claw to get that out and to prove to people that it's gone. There needs to be positive stories coming out of Blizzard that aren't coming from leaders. I'm talking about employees being happy and being open about talking about it. I'm not talking, handpicking your happiest, I don't want to say bootlickers, but you know what I mean.
It needs to feel natural. It's very obvious if it feels natural versus not feeling natural.
Yeah.
And
when you see someone who's like an animator come in and be like, management's changed, we're working less hours, this is happening, I take that more seriously than Bobby Kotick being like, we put in a new anti-harassment policy. I'm like, okay, sure. Policies need to be enforced. We need to see proof of that enforcement and everything else. It's the same struggle that Ubisoft's going through as well. The proof needs to be there.
Yep.
Actions speak louder than words. But speaking of actions, social media was whipped into a frenzy, which honestly, I don't even know why I use that term anymore. Literally.
What does that mean?
Yeah. When can I get off this crazy ride? So Microsoft is partnering with Sega. And I think the key distinction here is Microsoft is partnering with Sega on Sega's. Basically, this is a strategic partnership to use Azure cloud technology. And okay, I'm just going to read the quote from Sega's CEO because it sums it up way better than me trying to read off an article here. So basically, the CEO from Sega had this to say in regards to the partnership. We are very pleased to announce today that we are considering a strategic alliance with Microsoft to help develop Sega's new, in quotation, super game initiative, as well as build a next generation game development environment. By considering a strategic partnership with Microsoft, we seek to further advance our game development so that our titles can be enjoyed by fans all over the world. In this regard, we aim to build an alliance that utilizes both Sega's powerful game development capabilities and Microsoft's cutting edge technology and development environment. It's a lot of PR mumble jumble. And the unfortunate thing with PR mumble jumble is it can be interpreted in many, many ways. I don't care what idiots on social media are saying about this and what their interpretation is. Sam, what is your interpretation of this press release and what do you think it means as an overarching whole?
Okay. What it means, as best I can tell, obviously, I'm not perfect here, is Sega wants this super game to pay off. They want, we can laugh at the name, I do, But they want this to be a big thing. They want it to pay off. They want it to be an ecosystem, not just a game. They want this to be a game and a platform for other things moving forward. They have realized they do not have the technology to achieve that. That means they need to go to someone who can give them a lot of powerful servers and a lot of technological infrastructure and communication technology. You got three choices. You got Amazon, you got Google, you got Microsoft. That's it. Pick one. You need to pick one of those three if you need those things accomplished. Amazon and Google. Do I need to say anything about that, right?
No.
So that leaves you with one option. Go to Microsoft. Say, hey, we want to do this. We can't do it. We need Azure. Help us out. Now, here's a little spoiler alert. These companies, including Amazon and Google, the real bread and butter of their money is cloud servers, because they are the only three companies that have these massive warehouses full, of servers that they can just loan out at an expensive cost and use it to make money. So Microsoft, of course, they're going to say yes to this. That makes perfect sense. Win-win. Now, could it lead to other things in the future? Maybe. Could it mean that Sega and Xbox get talking other ways? Maybe. But that is not a guarantee. That right there is what you can absolutely rely on, what I just said. Anything else is certainly a possibility, and I would dare say is even possibly more likely, because naturally the companies are going to be talking more. But this is an Azure cloud gaming play. That's what this is. This is a more aggressive version of the deal they already signed with Sony.
Yeah.
But more aggressive because it's more happening, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. And I think the thing is, too, because I know a lot of people, I wrote a whole piece on this. If people want to read it, go read it. It's on my timeline. But I think the whole thing is everyone's looking for this connection with Sega and Microsoft. Like, everyone jumps to acquisitions and everything else. And I think at certain points, acquisitions make sense. And then other points, partnerships make a lot more sense. And I think partnering with Sega in the long run would be a great idea for Microsoft, or for Xbox specifically. But this is Microsoft. This is about Azure cloud gaming. That's what this specifically is about. The thing is if people really wanted to, pick at the seeds that are planted, so to speak, is look at what's already happening within the Xbox ecosystem with Sega. All the Yakuza games went day and date into Xbox Game Pass, except for Like a Dragon. It came later. But Yakuza Like a Dragon was a very heavily featured Xbox Series X launch title. You look at Relic and their co-development, along with, help me out here, the studio that was made to develop Age of Empires.
World's Edge.
I was going to call it a New World, and I was like, that's the Amazon MMO. Help.
You're in the ballpark. You were in the ballpark.
Rough it. But Relic was a major part of helping bring Age of Empires back. So that's also Sega owned, which I also did not realize was owned by THQ in 2013 when I was doing some research for a piece, and they were auctioned off to Sega.
Yep. Fun fact, which is why they are under the Sega Europe branch, because even though they're a Canadian studio, Sega does not have a North American branch to handle them. So they just kind of quietly shuffled them under the European team.
Yeah. I was doing research for my piece, and I was like, wait, so why is a Canadian studio part of Sega Europe? How does this work?
Britain is at it again, man. They're at it again. They're not done.
We're back to colonization. Great. But yeah, the relationship's there. Here's the thing. The thing that speaks volumes to me is Sega's talking about they want to reach a worldwide audience. I believe that because the sequel to Judgment was one of the first games from Sega in a long time that launched coinciding with the Japanese release with the Western release. That had a worldwide launch date. That has not happened with that particular set of games. And even with the Yakuza games, they typically release in Japan anywhere up to a year before they hit the West due to localization and everything else. The sequel of Judgment, day one, everywhere. Xbox, PlayStation, PC. And I think that's their strategy going forward. So while I think people need to stop looking so much into this deal and look at the overarching picture of where this direction's going. Like this partnership doesn't mean Persona 5's got all of a sudden magically appear on your Xbox. But if Sega's trying to appeal to a wider audience and get more people involved, I think it's more likely to see games they publish going into the Xbox ecosystem. But I would also like to put an asterisk on that to save my own ass for someone clipping this and roasting me later with it. That is not a guarantee. As Sam said, when you're partnering with someone, you do a little back and forth sometimes. You talk a little bit more. So if Microsoft's like, hey, you want to cut a little bit, we'll cut like 1%. I'm spitballing. I do not know how these deals are made.
Sure.
Yeah. Like we'll cut like 2% off your Azure costs for this year if you toss Persona 6 on Xbox.
Right.
Sure.
Right. It's like that kind of thing can happen from here, but people should not take it as it will happen. It's
absolutely. And I really implore people, just let the Xbox acquiring Sega dream die. I don't even understand it at this point of why people want this to happen. Sega does its own thing. Xbox is doing its own thing. There is so many different business parts of Sega that Microsoft and Xbox would not want to deal with, that just let them be partners. Let Sega can keep publishing games and doing what they do, and hopefully they'll all come to Xbox and we can all enjoy them, and it is what it is. I really want to know what this super game is, because honestly, like they're talking about online community. There is not anything that Sega makes where I'm like online community, unless you're talking about all the people that love Yakuza. But other than
that's the closest thing. Okay, so wait a minute. Like a giant super game of just Yakuza, like thousands upon thousands. Like, okay, now we're talking. Now we're getting somewhere.
I feel like I'm completely discrediting Phantasy Star Online, but like,
yeah. Phantasy Star Online too, man. That's one of those games where it's like quietly big. There's so many of those games where it's like very quietly. You never see it in the Twitter bubble. That's a big game over there.
Yes,
it's fascinating.
MMOs are always like that. Like you sit there and go, "Oh, I've never even heard of this MMO," and you're like, "Oh, 56,000 concurrent players daily." Okay.
Right.
Yeah, it's just kind of wild. But yeah, I think people just need to pump on the brakes a bit, settle down, relax. We got tons of stuff to play. So you don't need to make a video all caps Sega acquired by Xbox and all that. Don't do that, please. Yeah. But I get it. I love Sega too, and they do really weird stuff. And honestly, that's why the Sega partnership kind of makes sense, because I feel like this cloud tech, like I don't understand this cloud technology at all. Like I understand the simplistics behind it of being able to offload certain aspects of your game onto a cloud server to free up hardware and expand like your CPU memory and everything else. I understand some of the basics of that, and I'm excited for that. But seeing like Kojima be interested in it, and now you see Sega's interested in it. Sega's always kind of subtly been on the cutting edge of things, and I think people never gave them the credit for it. Like you look at the Sega Dreamcast had so many features that were so pointless at the point in time that they were released. Like the Sega Dreamcast had a web browser. Like when was the next console we got with a web browser? You could have a keyboard. They had typing games on the Dreamcast. Like, it's weird. The Dreamcast was the weirdest technological console ever. And, like, I fully understand why it failed.
I appreciate that Eric isn't here, so you're the one who has to launch into the Dreamcast love. Obligatory.
Oh, it's going to be a fun episode next week. We got community questions about Dreamcast. It's going to be great.
Nice.
But yeah, they just were on the cutting edge. So them trying to be back on the cutting edge of things doesn't surprise me. Now, to talk about something that did absolutely melt down the internet, and I, once again, not rightly sure why, God of War made its way, or is making its way to PC.
Yeah.
So, Sam, I know you're graphic cardless right now, but you gonna pick up God of War on PC?
When I get a graphics card back and I'm able to like expand with a multi-monitor setup like I'd like to, yes. Because I want to play God of War with like ultra wide. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
That'd look good. Also, shout out to Fame, because you remember back in 2019 when Fame tweeted Corey Barlog about getting God of War on PC, and Corey said, "Yeah, well, I'm no Kojima, but I would love to see it too." Comes back around like, turns out maybe he's got some pull after all. Maybe he can. I'm sure it has more to do with it fitting in with the strategy right now, which we've talked about before, but. Yeah, God of War on PC. Please go play it. 20. By the way, almost 20 million sold, like over 19 million copies sold on PS4 so far. So juggernaut, like one of the biggest successes for PlayStation. What a magnificent turnaround for Sony Santa Monica. Hats off to them. Absolutely hats off to them. Critical and commercial success like that. But yeah, if you are somehow one of the people who did not play this game, pick it up on PC, please. I beg you, pick it up.
Yeah, absolutely. Like
it is the one of the only games all of us love equally.
Yeah.
There are games we all like. There are not many games all of us, three of us here on the panel, love equally like that.
Yeah. No, God of War is that special game for a lot of people. And I think what really made me happy with that announcement, the sales figures and everything, is that game had legs for days. Like I remember, I think it was like opening weekend, it did what? 3.3 or something.
Opening weekend was 3.3. Opening month was 5 million. Yep.
Yeah. So 5 million in the first month, but to then see it hit almost 20 million in what, almost 4 years?
No, 3.5 years.
3.5 years.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yep.
That's
like scratching at Nintendo level success, frankly, in terms of copies sold. Like that's getting up there.
It's bigger than Luigi's Mansion 3, which for some reason has become the gold standard.
Americans will use anything except for the metric system, so I'm going to start measuring things in Luigi's Mansion. It's like, oh, that's Animal Crossing reached 4 Luigi's Mansion 3s today. Nice!
Like, every time any podcast that ever has Jeff Grubb on it, he always brings up the fact that Luigi's Mansion 3 has sold to over 10 million copies. And I just sit there and I'm like, Luigi's Mansion 3, 10 million. God damn, dude.
It's Luigi, man. It's Luigi.
It's all about that Luigi. But yeah, I'm excited for God of War of PC. It's actually one of the PlayStation games I am going to get on PC. Because, oh my God.
Worth the double dip.
One, supporting Santa Monica, and we're all about supporting the developers on this show.
Here, we buy our games and we play them.
Yes. Weird concept. 2, the mods, dude. The mods for this game are going to be like,
Corey's already retweeted some like having giant Atreus with a tiny Kratos on his back. Like, yes.
My dream mod is replacing the axe with Atreus T-posing and just being able to throw it at Atreus.
Yeah. When sometimes you got to just take a boy and hit something with him.
Like I saw someone visualize, like someone drew it out in like a frame by frame, and then instead of using Balder, they used Conor McGregor in like his fighting shorts, and then they used Atreus as the axe in the fight scene. It was like, this is so bad. This is gonna be a mod. Like, it's going to be great. It's going to be good times. Ultra wide support, 4K, unlocked frame rates. Ooh, that game at 120 FPS. It's going to be good, dude.
That's the good stuff. That's the good stuff. Now, here's a fun little quick question, because we know the Uncharted collection is coming sometime shortly after this, because God of War is coming to PC in January 2022. Uncharted collection is early, so we think it's March or April. After the two Uncharted games, 4 and Lost Legacy, what do we think is the next port? I want to ask that question right now. What do we think is the next one to get announced specifically? I'm going to say announced because they did do that weird thing where we knew about the Uncharted ones for a while now, but God of War is going to come out first. So I'm going to specifically say the next one announced, not the next one to release.
I've got 2 guesses at this one. My first, and I think the most obvious shoe-in one, will be Ghost of Tsushima.
Okay, good.
I think that feels like a safe bet. My second, more wild card one is Returnal.
Okay, interesting.
What about
you? You took one of mine. Returnal was going to be one of mine. I think of the PS5 only games, Returnal is the first to make its way over to PC.
Yeah.
So I'm with you there. The other one I was going to pitch was going to be what was it? Seriously? What? I was so excited that you and I were on the same brain cell as Returnal, and then the second one completely leaves my head. What on earth? Demon Souls. I was going to say Demon Souls because we've previously talked about we have the same conspiracy theory that maybe Blue Point is actually doing, Bloodborne 2. Mm-hmm. So if that's the case, it would be perfect to get Demon Souls on PC as well to juice those sales a little bit more.
Well, to piggyback on that theory, there was, and I don't want to put a lot of stock in this, but there was a Steam DB leak for
Sackboy.
Yes. Which was a launch title on PlayStation 5, and Demon Souls was a launch title on PlayStation 5. Mm-hmm. So maybe we could start seeing some of the launch titles slowly trickle.
Yeah, okay. So I should have added this and clarified. I saw the Steam DB listing for Sackboy, and I did this weird thing where I already counted it in my brain, and I didn't. So, realistically, it's Sackboy is the next one being announced. But, I meant outside of that because that's kind of leaked already. Yeah. I should have clarified that. I'm sorry.
I feel like I know we're on the way to day and date. We're making our way there slowly.
Emphasis on very slowly. I think some people do think it's happening a little faster than it actually is.
I agree. I don't think we see day and date until 2025, 2026. Later in the generation by far. But I think we're going to see... I think the year is going to be the grace period they settle in on. I feel like where they're going to be like, okay, the game's been on sale a couple of times. We're kind of tapped out in terms of console users. Let's put it on PC now. I feel like will be their settling ground unless all of a sudden their PC ports explode through the roof and then day and date may come faster. I've seen a lot of people go, no, they're going to keep the 4 to 5 year trend alive. I'm like, you don't buy a PC porting studio to port games 4 to 5 years later. You don't do that. But it'll be interesting. Regardless, more people get to play games, so it's a good time all around. Someone make flying Atreus a thing. Now I have visions of him like a flying squirrel. I don't know why I want to throw that kid so bad. Speaking of throwing children, Halo Infinite got a campaign preview trailer. I didn't think we'd see this soon. If I'm being 100% brutally honest.
Same.
I kind of thought they'd bank this for their anniversary and they'd be like, hey, here's a new look at Halo's campaign. But to be brutally honest, I'm glad they did.
Yep.
Because waiting till 3 weeks before your game launches to show the campaign, which was what everyone was hung up on about. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't want to do that really. So what were your thoughts on the campaign overview trailer? What did you think?
Good. Definitely in the all right, we're good. In an ideal world, I'd still like to see one more trailer before launch. I'd still like to see one more just a few minutes of gameplay. Because what this was is, you saw it, but for anyone who didn't watch this yet, what are you doing here? Go back and watch it and then come listen to us. It was an overview, which means they would do like, here's 20 seconds of gameplay. All right, and now we're going to go shift over and talk about this. And now we're going to go shift over and talk about this. Now here's a cutscene. Here's 20 seconds of gameplay. So it was a good overview. It was wide but shallow, is the way I'll put it.
Yeah.
I think it looks good. I think it showed a lot of good things. I'm just saying I wouldn't be opposed to one more gameplay segment. If that makes any sense. But what they showed was good. They showed a lot of cool stuff like rescuing Marines and then careening off the cliff, which has become a great meme. It's really good. Lots of cool enemy designs. It seems like there's a new Covenant species called the Skimmers, which are being introduced. There's this banished elite who's killing Spartans, who's tracking you down. The war chiefs look really cool. A lot of the upgrades look really cool. They previously mentioned last year that equipment upgrades were going to work differently in campaign versus multiplayer. But here we got to see like, oh, there's actually kind of a skill tree where you're going to unlock points and upgrade your repulsor. You're going to upgrade your grapple. You're going to upgrade your thruster. So that stuff is cool. I like the tone of it. I like the fact. I know some people are a little hit or miss on the story in terms of the direction they're going, and I grant them that. But for me, I'm okay with the mystery. I like not understanding what's happening. I like being like, wait a minute, what? Floating in the middle of nowhere here. How did the Banished just come in and wipe out the UNSC Infinity's forces? Where has Cortana and her like invincible army of Guardians and AI ships gone? Like this isn't adding up. We need to figure this out. I like that. I like that mystery. For me, it's recapturing the tone of that second mission in Halo Combat Evolved, where you sit down on the ring and you look up and you see the ring and you're like, what's going on here? Like, for me, that is what they're trying to hit. And this overview hit those tones. Mm-hmm. So I liked it. What about you?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way because, like, I think part of the biggest problem with Halo 5 is they tried to sell that campaign so goddamn hard. And that didn't turn out, it didn't turn out to be what they kind of tried to sell us, or at least it didn't contextually feel like that. So for them to be kind of more quiet on the story details, I'm fine with that. I'm absolutely fine with that, because even at its core, and the thing is like, people can hate me to the moon for this. I have never once played Halo for the story. I literally played it for the sandbox and playing it with my friends in co-op. Like I don't even think I've paid attention that much. Like I couldn't recap a Halo story for you if I tried. I honestly couldn't. And I know it's got amazing lore and people love it and the books are amazing and everything else. But for me, it's playing with my friends, blowing stuff up, just the whole sandbox of it all. So if the story misses a couple of beats, I'm probably not going to be the person that's most upset about it, as long as I can, kill that sniper jackal in a really unique and fun way. But I will say, though, is I am interested in the story they're trying to tell. And I'm going to replay the Halo games for the story and kind of see if I can get myself into it. I just never really gave them a chance in terms of story prior. So go play them solo and try to absorb some of that magical story and lore and everything else and get myself ready for Infinite. But overall, I think it looks great. And especially compared to what they showed a year ago, the game's come leaps and bounds. Like my boy Craig's got hair.
He's a Chad now. You see that glorious beard and that glorious just he's rocking it.
Like
he's rocking it.
Like I feel like me and Craig could go out, do tequila shots, and get ourselves some nice virtual AI.
Tequila. Craig would carry you home and tuck you into bed.
Yeah, exactly. Craig's the homie. I'm glad Craig got to live on, and I'm just happy to see the game in a better state than it was. And I know everyone's clamoring for this to be the best Halo ever, and people are going to debate whether it's better than this and better than that and everything else. But I just want a good, cohesive Halo game. I want a great campaign. We already know the multiplayer is great. Mm-hmm. I want the complete package.
Yep.
And if 343 finally delivers on that complete package, then I think the wait was justified. I do not
Well said.
I do not have a problem with waiting a couple extra years for something to be great versus just decent.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're on our way. And I'm interested to see. What I'm really interested in for Halo is not just the launch, but 12 months after. Like, I want to know what their content rollout's going to look like, not only for multiplayer, but also for these expansions they want to do. And
right, because we know they're going to do multiplayer seasons and they're going to add maps. That's pretty obvious. And they've said that campaign co-op is coming roughly 3 months after launch, and then roughly 6 months is going to be Forge. So we know that, but when we start looking at like 12 months out, 18 months out, 2 years out, what is the story plans beyond that? That's interesting.
What is Halo Infinite's Taken King gonna look like?
Exactly. Now, I will say I would not expect us to learn about that before E3 next year at minimum.
Oh,
probably
absolutely.
Even beyond that. But just to be clear, but
they definitely need to focus on getting the co-op campaign in there and getting Forge in there.
Right.
And I think they seem focused is the word I would use. Is this rollout compared to the previous has been phenomenally well put together, organized, and everything else. And I know it's a team effort, but I feel like Stanton has been a huge part of that, because all of a sudden the shoelaces are tied, the boots are ready to go, and we're running for the finish line. So excited to play Halo Infinite in just over a month.
I know, we're getting close, man. Like, December has felt so long away for so long, but we are a month and 6 days away. So not even 5 weeks. We're getting there.
Yeah.
We're almost there.
All I need is you and Eric to not talk about the game for the next 5 weeks, and we are A-okay.
Good luck.
Because I swear to God, if you guys delay another game I love, I ain't got time. I ain't got time for that, Sam. I ain't got time for that. All right. So we've got a handful of community questions. I had to bank one. Shout out to the person who sent in the Sega Dreamcast question. We're banking that because Eric needs to be here for that, and Sam we'll just have to peruse and deal with me and Eric waxing nostalgia.
I'll just pull out a teddy bear and a blanket and a pillow. It's fine. I have literally done that on a podcast. I have literally pulled out a blanket and a pillow before. So, like, watch me. I'll do it again.
This man. So we've got a question. Somehow one of our listeners magically got themselves a graphics card. They bought a used 1080 Ti.
Oh, okay. I was about to say how, and like, oh, wait a minute. That's more realistic. Okay.
Hi, guys. I recently bought a 1080 Ti, and I know both of you guys have an extensive knowledge of PC games for the most part. I've been away from PC gaming for 20 years now, and I'm just getting back into it. Is there any games that I must immediately check out or should buy from Steam? Can you guys both give me 2 recommendations?
Okay. Why don't you give one, then I give one, then you give one, then I give one.
All right. So if it's been that long since you've played on PC, that is, I feel that, because I was on a similar time gap on stuff. You got a 1080 Ti. I highly recommend if you love FPS games, go either play a Medieval or play Dusk, because if you haven't played them in 20 years, the last games you probably played were boxy looking FPS games. So go play some new boxy FPS games that are really, really good. And oh wait, no, you got 1080 Ti. Never mind. I was going and a Medieval has ray tracing, but 1080 Ti ain't going to do that. So I definitely go with Dusk. It's fantastic front to back, and it's trippy. So give that a shot for sure.
Yep. And then I'm going to go on the opposite end of the spectrum and say, to see where things have evolved in the time you've been gone, pick up Doom Eternal.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah,
because it plays like those older games, but the way it looks, buckle up.
Yeah,
buckle up.
This isn't your daddy's Doom.
No. And the beautiful thing about id Tech 7 is 1080 Ti is a good card. It's an older card, but it is a good card. id Tech 7 is so ridiculously well optimized. That thing sings even on older cards.
Oh, yeah.
So you're going to have a smooth, dial that frame rate up. Dial the frame rate up as far as you can go. You're going to have a good time.
Yeah. So dial that frame rate up and target like with 1080. Yeah, you could probably do 14,
high. I would say probably
14.
High settings.
Yeah, high. Go high settings and you'll have a good time. Game's smooth as smooth can be. Now, if you played older games, you'll probably like RTS games. I could recommend Age of Empires 4 because it's on Game Pass, but I already talked about that at the start of the show. If you really want to dive in to RTS games, start with the Total War series.
Yep.
Like
literally
it's modern.
Them, but
yeah, any of them. And it's incredibly modern, but if you played RTS games 20 years ago, it's like putting on socks, man. You know how to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And they're on sale all the time. I keep buying Total War games because it's like, oh, this one's on sale. Ooh, this one's on sale. I haven't played this one yet, but I bought this.
And then you start buying DLC for the games.
Yes.
Start buying the man. First, when I get a GPU again, we're gonna play Warhammer together. Like we were cheated of that, and I'm still so annoyed. But anyways, okay. So this one's tricky because this is one you might have had access to if you had a console. I don't know that. That isn't very clear based on that question. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say you missed this game. And that is Play Prey. Play Prey. It is a fantastic game. It runs extremely well on PC. Developed by Arcane Studios, 2017. It is the closest thing we're ever getting to a new System Shock.
Yep. Because
System Shock 3, until proven otherwise, isn't coming out. If I am eventually proved wrong, then so be it. But until otherwise. Incredible. It takes their immersive sim design and just the way you can take anything in that game that isn't bolted to the floor, and even some of the things that are, and just reduce them to base chemicals, and they put those chemicals in a machine and make your equipment and fabricate what you need. Prey understands a living space design better than I think any other game I've ever played. I have to be careful because I can literally go on for hours about Prey, so I have to reel myself back in. Play Prey.
Yeah. And there is so many games I can recommend, and there's some that I would not recommend.
Oh, yeah.
You should also play.
Ask this question next week, and he and I will just keep on giving you good PC games to play. Like, we'll keep finding stuff for you.
Yeah. And if you want to get into some obscure and weird stuff that's insanely cheap, go look up Mandalore Gaming on YouTube and watch his reviews.
Yes.
Because I've found a ton of games that I've turned out to love because of watching stuff. Like Pathologic is phenomenal. And
I never would have downloaded that if it wasn't for his video.
Exactly. I kind of regret Anonymous Agony right now, but like suffering for suffering. It's no druids, but it will do.
Druids you got to go to the GOG for the druids.
Yeah.
But
yeah, you got to go to GOG for a lot of them. And actually, if you haven't gamed on PC in 20 years, go check out GOG.com.
They have a lot of good older stuff for dirt cheap.
Yep. And they'll save you the hassle because if you buy a lot of older games on Steam, you might have to install mods and do a bunch of fixes to get things to work. In GOG, typically it's worked right into the file for you. So all you do is plug and play.
Yep, exactly.
So if you want to play any of the old Thief games and everything else, great place to pick up those games. And our final community question is, you only get one game for the rest of the year. One game you get to play. And you get to fast forward the release date. You get it tomorrow, whatever it is, but it's the only game you can play until the end of the year. What game are you getting?
Well, this is going to be boring, but my answer is going to be Halo Infinite. Like, we're in November, so looking at the games that are left to launch this year, like, yeah, like it's going to be Halo Infinite. Sorry, like I can reasonably like I want to pick up Guardians of the Galaxy. I haven't done it yet, but I want to. But I can reasonably make it through on just Halo Infinite to the end of the year. That doesn't mean I'll be super happy. It doesn't mean there aren't other things I'd like to play, but yeah, I can do that. I can make it work. What about you, Nick?
See, in my heart of hearts, I know it's Halo Infinite because I know the multiplayer will be good and the multiplayer will keep me for 2 months.
Yep.
The other part of me goes, but maybe Battlefield won't suck.
Battlefield is the question mark for sure.
I feel like we're in this wild card of FPS where I have like I've been playing a lot of Call of Duty Modern Warfare, like the 2019, because it's still so good.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But it had none of it has made me go, maybe I should pick up Vanguard. There's no part of me that's doing that. I'm like, I'm playing the good game. Why would I go to the bad game? But Battlefield feels like there's this question mark. It's like, it might suck.
What if it doesn't, though? Good. What if it doesn't, man?
But I'm going with my gut. I'm staying safe. I'm grabbing Halo because I know the multiplayer will be good. And I get to energy sword people in samurai armor. Like, come on.
You get to use a grappling hook to grab a gravity hammer, to grab onto a warthog to smack people. Come on. Like, come on.
I just, yeah. I tweeted this out, but I'll say it here. If you add a grappling hook to your game, there's a guarantee I'll give you a 5-point bump. Like, it has to be good, though. That is the one clear indicator. It's a great grappling hook adds so much to gameplay. But, man, does a crappy grappling hook take away from gameplay.
What was the last game you played with a bad grappling hook?
I'm trying to think the last game that it had to be a long time ago. There hasn't been, like, bad grappling hooks in a long time. I'm trying to remember now. There's got to been one. There's no way that gaming has 100% done grappling hooks all the time. Perfect.
No, I'm sure there's been a miss. I'm just saying, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, grappling hooks are just, there you go. Grappling hooks equal inherently good. You learned something today.
There you go. There you go.
We're all about teaching lessons here. 1 + 1 = 4 and everything else. Cyberpunk's still bad. We're growing. We're growing. So that kind of concludes our episode. A little bit shorter this week, mainly because I didn't sit here and argue with Eric for 30 minutes of the podcast, or Sam didn't argue with me and Eric through 30 minutes of the podcast. So good times. Appreciate everyone for listening, especially for those that listen to us in the morning on your way to work or whatever. So we appreciate you guys. And next couple of weeks are going to be fun. We got the lead up to the Game Awards. The Game Awards are probably going to be exciting. Last year, they were a pretty big deal.
Yep.
And of course, we'll be doing our own Game Awards as we do every year with a host of standard practical categories that definitely aren't weird, zany, or stupid.
Definitely no oddball categories.
Definitely not. Very, very strict and honest categories, obviously. And we're going to do that. We'll have some great guests in the coming weeks, and we're going to be running into Forza this week.
Yep.
There's
Call of Duty Vanguard as well. Week after that, we've got Skyrim Anniversary Edition and the GTA Trilogy on the same day. Is it? What year is it? I know. Incredible.
I can't believe I'm going to have to talk about Skyrim on a podcast again. That's going to be wild.
Yes. Dude, did you see? It's not just fishing. You can make your own aquariums.
God Howard, everybody. God Howard. But yeah, we've got that. We're going into Halo Infinite, Battlefield. There's too many games, y'all. Like, I just want a break long enough that I can play some games that I want, but goddamn reviews keep going and going. I get out one, I'm like, oh, now I got some time to. Oh, hello. But it's a great time to be playing games, and it's only going to get better into 2022 if even half the games meet release dates that they're supposed to. So, Sam, if people wanted to find you and the stuff you do, where would they have to look?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Samuel Tolbert. That's Tolbert. I'm still writing stuff over on Windows Central, Android Central, and iMore. Recently dropped a review of the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack and how, please, for the love of God, do not pay for it right now. It's not worth it. Some other cool stuff coming up that I am chomping at the bit to talk about, but very, very shortly it will be here. So.
Yeah, we'll have some great stuff to talk about next week. If nothing else, if not even news related, we will have some great game stuff to talk about.
At minimum, yeah.
At bare minimum. So appreciate everyone for tuning in. I'm your host, Nicholas Downey. You can find me on Twitter, Nicholas_Downey. Find my written work at lordsofgaming.net. And we appreciate you guys for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you guys next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Bye for now.